Hi, Matt Bisogno here again, and welcome to another Gold Nuggets. And in this Jubilee edition, we will be looking at the Epsom feature meeting this weekend, which of course includes the Oaks, the Coronation Cup, and the Derby. So let's get cracking with that. Before we start to look at any form or the tools or the trends or any of that good stuff, I want to remind you of how I begin my own preparation. And the first two things I do are to, if I don't know it off the top of my head, to remind myself of the course configuration. And I do that by, I'm a bit ahead of myself here. I do that by going to the race cards page, and for Epsom or any other racecourse, on the right hand side there's this course info link. Clicking on that brings up the course page, course guide, lots of good information on that page, but the bit I'm particularly interested in is the course configuration. And we can see here, let me just see if I can make this a little bigger. We can see here that there's a straight 5, which is downhill with a little kick up at the end, but this is a very fast 5 furlongs. It's known as the fastest 5, certainly in Britain. So that's where they'll run the dash and any other 5 furlong races. The 6 and 7 furlong races take place around most or some of the home turn, and both start in a chute, and that could be material from a draw and pace perspective, and we'll look into that in a second. Longer races over an extended mile, so this is a mile, half a furlong, or a mile and a quarter, and of course the Derby, Oaks and Coronation Cup trip of a mile and a half start in the back straight. And note that these mile and a half races, you see the configuration is like a horseshoe with a little chute onto the shoe, as it were. So there's this dog leg in the back straight, which is kind of material in bigger fields, even over a trip of a mile and a half. So we'll look. We need to keep that in mind as we go through the various race distances. This is why I say it's, if you didn't know that already, and I'm guessing most of you didn't, I certainly had forgotten about the chutes here. This is why it's really important to familiarise yourself or re-familiarise yourself with the course information. And you can find these maps, as I say, from the links on the right hand side on the race cards menu page. Okay, so that's the course configuration. We'll keep that in mind as we go along. The other thing to be aware of, particularly this week when the weather is somewhat changeable, is the going and the weather forecast. So I'm recording this on Thursday the 2nd of June, ahead of Friday's meeting, and we can see here on the BHA homepage, which is if you go to britishhorseracing.com, you can find it from there. This is the Epsom fixture, and we can see that the current going as of this morning, 7:32 a.m, was good to soft, good in places. The forecast is for dry and warm weather Thursday and Friday. I'm not a million miles from Epsom here in Hackney, and it's a very sunny day, so I'm guessing the ground will be good on Friday. The forecast for Saturday is a little more changeable. If we just go to the BBC website, click on weather, search for Epsom, and you'll see that this sunny forecast for the next 2 days. But then on Saturday, you can see Saturday morning they're forecast some rain up till, well, potentially all day, but certainly throughout the morning. How much they get, very hard to say, really hard to predict these things in advance, but they'd probably be unlucky to be racing softer than good to soft, and my best guess for Saturday at this stage would be good to soft. So I'm going with good on Friday and good to soft on Saturday. Okay, so where does that leave us? Well, let's go to the old race card. The first thing I'm going to do, this is Friday's card here, I'm going to change the drop down from good to soft to good. And of course I might be wrong about this, but you know, I'm using the information that I have available to me to make a vaguely educated guess on what the weather's going to do. And that's going to be material in terms of form profiles, horses that handle, most horses should handle good, but certainly when the ground is softer, you tend to see horses come up the stands rail, so that's this side in the home straight, so they will come around the turn, and rather than go the shortest route up the far side where the camber takes them, they come across to the higher ground, because of course if any rain will drain down towards the inside. So the inside tends to be softer when the going is genuinely soft, but my guess is that they will stay on the far side because it won't be that soft. That's my guess. As I say, you know, using the best information we have at the moment, but so that's what I'm working on at this point in time. Okay, in terms of information, overview information to help you, if you click on the pointers menu item here, it's going to bring you to this page, and you can see we've got my own Derby and Oaks preview, and there's some draw stuff in there, and if you're interested in what I think about the Derby and the Oaks, you can have a look at that. There are some trends for the Derby here from Andy Newton does these for us, and he's put in some observations about the profile patterns of the last 20 winners. There's the same information is available for the Oaks, and there are some more generic, sorry, not generic, there are some trends for the other races is what I should say on the Friday here, and I'm sure before Saturday there will be similar information for the Saturday races. So that needs changing for a start, but again we've got some information here about the profile fit for the last 19 Woodcote Stakes, and that's where we're going to start having a look at the racing this weekend. So if we go to finally, if we go to the Woodcote, this is it. It is a 6 furlong race for 2-year-olds. It's a conditions race. It's a Class 2. It was a listed race up until 2016 or 2017, and I'm surprised it's lost its listed status because, in my opinion, it's generally a race that finds plenty of good quality horses going forward. Certainly, good quality 2-year-olds. Looking at the history, what I did is I kind of used I like to use Query Tool sometimes to obviously we don't yet have a trends option where you can click and see various information. Perhaps we put that in a tab here at some point. We haven't yet got that. So what you can do is you can, with a race like this, you can replicate it or you can mimic it within Query Tool. So it's Epsom, it's June. I've actually included July as well because in the COVID year, the Derby and Oaks were run late. This meeting was run in July. Class 2, and I've had to put listed in this case as well because, again, unusually it's changed class in the study period. 2-year-olds, 6 furlongs, and so these are the filters I ended up with. Age 2, Class 1 and 2, course Epsom, distance 6 furlongs, month June and July. And when I look at the summary, so just get rid of this a second, then I've got 12 races in the sample size, and that's all of the Woodcotes since 2009. So on the qualifiers tab, I can sort by position, and you can see there was a disqualified horse here. De Bruyne horse was disqualified for an illegal substance, as I recall. And the second place horse in that race, which was Card Sharp, is listed as the winner here. So these are the winners. You can see they're all they're all in early June, as befits this meeting, with the exception of 2020, when, as I say, the Derby was run. The Derby meeting was run a month late, so that's why we've got this July entry here. So these are the second place horses, and from Owen Burrows, from this line here, are the winners. And a quick look reveals that Messrs Johnston, 1, 2, 3 winners, and Hannon Dad, 1, 2, 3 winners, have had a ripe old time of it. So they'd be interesting to see if they've got anything running. Other trainers who target the race, Mick Channon's had a winner here, and look, we can see he's had a second place here as well. So he would be an interesting one also. Tom Dascombe has had a couple of second places. Now, Tom Dascombe is now Hugo Palmer, because he was Tom Dascombe was attached to the Manor House stable, which is now Hugo Palmer's manor, if you'll pardon the very rubbish pun. And we can see that Hugo Palmer has a runner here. We can see that Mick Channon has a runner here. And we can see that Richard Hannon has a runner here. We can also see, in fact, if I sort by surname, it's a bit easier. We can see that Mark Johnston, notably, does not have an entry. So the horse that I was kind of drawn to was Hannon's horse, because Richard Hannon has, I don't know how many, but probably something like 150 to 200 two-year-olds, of which any number will have seen a racetrack already. This lad had a run just 6 days ago at Salisbury, and he didn't win, but he comes here anyway. And I thought that was interesting already, because Hannon obviously, as I say, has this vast army of two-year-olds to choose from for this race, which partially explains his good record in the race. If we look at the in-running comment, the horse actually got loose before his debut. That's not a good thing. He led, he was headed, ridden and hung. I mean, he's done so much wrong on debut and still nearly won. And here he is turning up at the Woodcote just a few days later. Richard Hannon's horses improve notably for the run. They have a very good second time record, impact value of 1.33. A fairly decent, though not spectacular, record running within a week. I just thought that was an interesting runner. He's drawn 8, and that would be a kind of a not good or bad draw, I'm guessing. I'm just going to have a look at that. You can see that there's a I used percentage of rivals beaten and PRB3, which is the average percentage of rivals beaten of a stall and its immediate neighbours. So the PRB3 for stall 10 would be the average PRB of stalls 9, 10 and 11. And we can see that there is kind of a sort of a vague linearity. Middle to high is favoured. High looks all right. Certainly advantageous compared to low. What we notice most of all, though, is that there is a run style bias, and we can see, there's kind of almost two halves here. There's a strong block of green in lead and prominent, and certainly the ones inside, there's kind of two triangles here, mid div and held up in low and held up in the middle draws, are really not the places to be. And then the other half of the other triangle here, which is 0.5 is average. So these are just right on average, really. But up front or prominent is where you want to be. So, and if you have a high draw and you're up front and not prominent, that may be even better. In fact, what we can see here is, looking at these, is a low or middle draw. If you've got the speed to lead, is the advantage, because you can basically you go the shortest route and be first to the corner and bag the rail. So if there's speed inside, that's going to be beneficial. And the horses with speed inside, let me just put that on graphic, might be Blatant, who has plenty of experience. Cazoo Power can be expected to step forward for his debut, although he may be outclassed here. Silencer was quick away, so I expect him to be in the mix. I think Silencer is probably a horse that might be quite interesting in that opening race. For all that it's not a race to go mad about, because they're 2-year-olds. A lot of them are having their second or third start and can make another big step forward. The track is famously difficult in terms of balance, so some will handle it, plenty won't. But certainly in place spot terms, Silencer is going to be towards the top of my list. I won't be singling in this race. I'll be doing a few others as well. Let's crack on. Time is against me, as always. The next race is a mile, half a furlong, 16-runner handicap for older horses. So there's plenty of form on offer here. Again, let's quickly remind ourselves what that means from a course constitution. That first bend comes up pretty quickly, and then they're on the turn for a fairway before the long run home. We can see the implications of that in terms of field size. Now there isn't a huge amount of data in the sample, so I'm just going to slightly mess about with these just to try and get a few more races to look at. And obviously when I do that, I'm deviating away from the precise race conditions, so I might be losing some of the value by doing that, but what I lose in that context I gain in terms of having a bigger sample size. And remember, with percentage of rivals beaten, every runner, so all of these 86 plus 40 is 125, all of these 125 runners get some sort of a score, except for the last horse in each race, each of these 8 races, because they get a score of 0% of rivals beaten. If you're still following, then let's see what the chart looks like. The chart actually is pretty straight line, so seems like it's a pretty fair course and distance in terms of draw, at least, and in terms of pace, run style, there's no, this is a kind of a random picture here. There's no obvious pattern, there's no obvious reason why horses who led from a middle draw would do so much better than those who led from a low or high draw. We might say that prominent or midfield, so kind of a stalking ride, would be optimal. Certainly it doesn't look beneficial to be held up, and that's kind of as good as you're probably going to get here. So I mean, looking at that in terms of the established run styles, let's put this on 3 races. I'd be apprehensive about Willie Haggis's Fireworks there, and also Fantastic Fox, both 10-1 shots currently, not because they can't win, but just because their run style is perhaps not conducive to Epsom, unless there was like a mad gallop on the front, and it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. It looks like it's going to be an even tempo with perhaps XL Power and perhaps Varian and maybe one of these prominent racers going forwards. There isn't a massive group of horses in the next rank, so I think this is going to be a fairly evenly run race, and I think a horse in the first half of the field, as they get to kind of the middle of the turn here, is very likely to win if the pace pans out as it appears to here. Instant Expert can help us in a race like this with a more exposed level of form. I'm just going to pop it on the place. These are the settings that I have for Instant Expert. They're my default settings. I often change them for various scenarios, which I can't really explain in any detail now. If we sort this by draw, you can kind of get a feel for which horses might be suited to conditions today. There's a few that have run at the track. Cazoo Handicap has a good record at the track, but he's got a hellish draw in 16. That definitely will not make life straightforward. He might try to get away quickly, as he did here. Sylvester de Souza is the right man to take him to the front, but it's going to be difficult to get across from 16, even in a race where there aren't that many that obviously want to go forward. And if you, sorry, just as an aside, if you think I'm kind of labouring this, these pace maps, I think if you start to look at them and think about them in this way, you'll be surprised at how, first of all, how accurate they can be in terms of which horses are positioned where in the early part of a race, and secondly, what the implications of that are for certain runners. So if you're looking at another website, anyone, doesn't really matter, and you're looking at the form profile for Cazoo Handicap, you'd see that he's got Epsom form, and like this run here behind Firepower, who that's Fireworks. You see that he has credentials to win the race, but you'd know that he had stall 16, but wouldn't necessarily have that kind of context of what stall 16 means against these rivals. So with these three horses here and a couple inside, I think it's going to be difficult for Corazon to get across from the wide post. Even if he tries to cut the corner there, it's going to be a challenge because of those horses inside him, all presumably trying to get a position as well. Might be tricky for him. So who do we like? If we don't like him, who do we like? Plenty of these have got form away from Epsom under conditions, and a horse like XL Power, who's probably going to go to the lead, we can see that he has led and won twice in smaller fields, over a mile, but he won by daylight last month off 92. He's up 6 for that. He's progressive, probably going to get the run of the race. He's on a 4-timer here, and just in this kind of cursory look now, he's going to be an interesting horse. He's got all the weight here, but he definitely figures to get the run of things. A very good chance he's going to try to lead again. You see he's led in his last 2, was prominent prior to that. Larado may try to go forward, but there's not much. A lot of these horses inside him want to be held up. These ones are held up runs, 2s are midfield. So XL Power and Holly Doyle are probably going to lead, and if she can slow it up on the front, they've got a pretty good chance, I'd say. So that'd be where I'd be. That's my early thinking in the World Pool Handicap. The next race is the 310, the Coronation Cup, small field race, a quality race. I'm not going to spend too much time on that in this video. Par Driver, I'm pretty sure, won it last year. Yes, he did, and he's been having a great time of it, globe-trotting since, including finishing second in this very valuable race in Hong Kong, and 4th in a very valuable race excuse me, in Maidan. So they've won plenty of quids, have those lads. Good luck to them. The Oaks is next. No, the Oaks is not next. The Cazoo Handicap, Cazoo Yeah You Can Handicap is next. This is over 10 furlongs, so again we're a bit further back this time, and my contention, my expectation with that, before we look at it, would be that this would be a probably still favours forward goers slightly, just because Epsom does, but they've got a long run to the first major turn, and my expectation would be that it's pretty fair in terms of the draw. Just going to do that again to get a bit more data in the window, and you can see that maybe the low draws have a bit of an edge, but nothing. No horse looks to be seriously inconvenienced. Again, looking at the run style heat map, we can see that it's the held up horses that have it all to do, and the rest of them, ignoring this outlier here, the rest of them are pretty much of a muchness. So once more, and you know, the caveat to held up horses having it all to do is in a race where it looks like they're going to go too fast early. And this race, actually, that could happen. So we've got two horses here in bad company and the City's Phantom, who are habitual forward goers, and we've got a third horse from the Charlie and Mark Johnston axis, which is also often ridden forward. So too Victory Chime, although he has a wide draw as well. This could be fast. The City's Phantom and Bad Company both don't know another way to run, so if they get racing straight away, that maybe brings the later runners into the picture a little more. I mean, I'd still be a little apprehensive. A horse like Soto Sizzler, from an inside draw, is probably going to need an awful lot of luck. I can see him swinging off the bridle for Ryan Moore and David Menuisier, and just waiting and waiting and waiting for a split to come, and it never coming. If it does come, then he's going to have his chance, as the price suggests, but that one could be a very frustrating watch potentially. So those are a few things to look out for. There's no point in me, trying to go through the form for every runner in every race. I'm certainly not going to do that in the Oaks, which is a race in which I've made some of my thoughts known in a preview piece. It's interesting that these two horses from the same yard that were evens and 5-1 are now 11-8 and 4-1, so they're converging in price. It's just about double figures, anything else you like. I have sided with Tranquil Lady and Moon de Vega. I think it would have been better if there'd been a bit of rain for Moon de Vega, but I still hope she can run well. Really interesting race, but goodness knows who's going to win it. I just felt that Emily's she can't do any more than win by half the track in these races, and this Sandown run, there is some substance to the form, with a few of them behind coming out and winning since, but I just thought the Musidora was perhaps a fairly shallow heat. Visually it was a very taking performance, but I wasn't blown away by the substance of the form. She comes here unbeaten. She's been smashing them up, anything she's run against so far, so maybe she just goes and wins, but I thought she was worth taking on in a way that I didn't really think with the Derby. So in the Derby, I thought the top of the market looked very credible. Certainly I like Desert Crown. I think he's inexperienced, and he has to show that he handles the track, as most of them do, but I thought that there was substance to this Dante run. The horses behind had many of them achieved a fair bit already, and he's won it easily. And I was there that day, and he looked a bit. I wouldn't be the world's greatest paddock expert, and that is some understatement, by the way. But he did look a bit on the tub side. He definitely looked like he'd improve fitness-wise for the run. I'm sure a good number of the others will as well, but they've got to improve in form terms a good bit as well as fitness. So I can't. I like Desert Crown. I think he's he's probably not that exciting at 7-4 or whatever price he is, 2-1. But I think he's a very legitimate favourite, and for Sir Michael and all sorts of other reasons, I really hope he wins. I had backed Aidan, who was potentially going to the French Derby, might be going to the Derby, was confirmed a runner in the Derby, and then within 24 hours was withdrawn with a minor injury. So I mean, I really don't know, what happened there, and I'm sure it is as it was presented, but that was frustrating from a wagering perspective. These are the perils of anti-post punting, of course. It is a very interesting race, and a good race, lots of good form. Obviously, the Derrinstown stud winner, the Derby Trial winner, Stone Age, it brings high hopes for Ballydoyle. But Ballydoyle have won this race plenty of times with a horse that wasn't the first choice. So if you like Changing of the Guard or Star of India or some of these other ones down the track, then actually they've only got those two this time. That's interesting. Then there's some hope for you there. That's really all I want to say on the Derby, and indeed on the Epsom meeting itself. Now that we're at the half-hour mark, the key things to remind you of are to, regardless of whether it's Epsom or anywhere else, to be aware of the going, and not just the advertised going, but also the weather conditions and the implications that they can have on the meeting. So check the latest BHA report, which you can get from this page, which is BritishHorseRacing.com/racing/fixtures/upcoming fixtures. I'll put a link to that underneath the video. Always worth checking that, so you can click the Epsom one and get the latest detail there. And always familiarise yourself with the going report. The BHA site can sometimes be brutally slow, unfortunately. So this information here, always easy for me to say, familiarise yourself with the course configuration. It will help you enormously in terms of understanding why certain pace or draw biases are as they are, particularly with a quirky track like Epsom. These shoots and the dog leg in the back straight, all of those things are material in terms of where a horse is drawn and how its typical run style manifests. So those are the things. And then obviously when you get into the races themselves, use all the tools you can, including Query Tool, if you want to try to formulate your own historical profiles. You can also, if you want to look at sires and dam sires, you can use the Query Tool, but also our new Profiler tool, which I haven't even mentioned yet. It's so new. So I could look at, for instance, Lope de Vega as a sire. Click sire, then click profile. You see that's gone bold now, and then all the data will appear for Lope de Vega, and I can have a look at various things in terms of Lope de Vega's historical form, or any jockey, trainer or horse I want to look at. And here's the breakdown by the various different categories, as you may be familiar with from the Profiler tab within a race. So those are all things that you can do with your Epsom research, or indeed research for any other meeting that you're interested in. I hope that's been an interesting oversight. Apologies if it was a little bit laboured in places, particularly around the importance of the pace maps and trying to visualise how races will be run. Lots of people have got a really good handle on the form book, but can't bring that into 3 dimensions by overlaying the expected setup of the race, and that's absolutely fundamental, particularly in handicaps where horses could be separate. There could be a 10-horse race where they're all within £4 or £5 of each other in the ratings. In other words, the horse with the best profile fit and the best draw and run style setup is going to have a great chance, and that might be the outsider and it might be the favourite. But if you're not aware of these things, you can't benefit from them. So be aware of those things and be lucky, and best of luck with the Derby meeting this weekend. This is Matt Bisogno saying thank you very much for watching as always, and goodbye for now.